This is Reality Check. I'm Matt.
And I'm Chris. We're two licensed therapists.
And two military veterans.
And we're here to smash societal fantasy
so you can live in reality. Welcome back to Reality Check.
Today's reality check: don't lose your self-identity to be accepted.
That's right. So there's this dichotomy, and that is self-identity versus collectivism.
Right.
Talk about a dichotomy. I know it's a big word. It's just saying there's a thing over here and a thing over there. Light and dark is a dichotomy. So self-identity to me is what makes things work. It what makes people work. It's what makes society work. Imagine if we were all essentially drones, and because there are insect societies, right, that are very collectivist.
Yeah.
And the very idea of collectivism to me is that nobody stands out, nobody's too good, everybody just does what they're supposed to do, thinks what they're supposed to think, says what they're supposed to say. Now, this to me is the easiest type of society to dominate, and that's exactly what people are trying to create right now.
Right. Well, and let me also preface this before we get into it as a disclaimer. You will never be good enough in these societies. Like, if you decide to jump in to a collectivistic society, if you decide to dissolve your individual identity to be within the collective, you will constantly be subjected to purity tests, and you will eventually fail. You will never be good enough.
How do we know this? Because it's happened.
Yes.
It's not a new thing.
Right.
Any society that has become collective will always have purity tests. To give you an example, we're going to talk the Roman Empire during the time of early Christianity. So you had a time where you had Emperor Constantine who converted to Christianity, the whole story, you saw a cross in the sky and all this stuff, and it wasn't fully accepted, and then Emperor Diocletian then decided that he did not want that society. I want to bring back the gods, the Roman gods, and I want to go back to our paganist ways and all of this. And so then what started happening is they would do things, because in the early Christian circles, if I understand this right, you weren't supposed to touch blood.
Yeah.
So they would do things like, let's find out who these Christians are. So they would actually sprinkle animal blood on fruit in the market.
Yeah.
And if you were unwilling to touch it, oh, you must be a Christian.
Yeah.
So we can get you. Because see, what Diocletian was trying to do, he was trying to go back to the Roman Empire, which was, in a lot of ways, very collectivist. And because in the Roman society, see, they had a different type of virtue. They called it virtu. And the virtue was more about conquering, right? Being strong, being brutal, luck. What they call fortuna was a big part of their culture. A different set of values, but they wanted everybody to have these same values. But if you were a Christian, that's a different set of values. You didn't fit in anymore. And so that's a very clear example of a purity test. So another example of a purity test is a Catholic Inquisition.
Yeah.
Where, and this is a real thing, you'd have people go into town, and then people would say, oh, I know so-and-so did this and said this, and oh, she over there, I saw her when she said the words at Mass, she changed the word and stuff like this. Yeah. And they would torture you and all kinds of things to make sure you believed exactly the same thing. Well, we're going to reject as a society anything so overt today. Right. But the things that are happening now are more subtle.
No. Well, even so, like, it creeps up in history. Like, as you said that, I was thinking about, like, the 1600s and, like, the Salem witch trials. If they threw you in the river, and if you floated, you were a witch. And if you didn't float, like, you were a good God-fearing human being. But the trick is, with that purity test, like, you drown. Right? Like, you either float and try to save yourself and they'll kill you because they think you're a witch, or you drowned and they're like, okay, well, she's dead, but at least she wasn't a witch.
Right. And so the purity test, just to finish the point, or make the point, is that they're not really rational. They're not really possible. No. Another purity test in the medieval times was, they called them trial by ordeal. And one example was, okay, let's say here's a cool story. City of Antioch was captured by the Crusaders, and then a Muslim army came in, or an Arab army, I should say, came in to reconquer it, and they were besieged and all of that. And so this guy Bartholomew, he says he finds the Holy Lance, the spear that supposedly pierced Christ's side.
Right.
And he said this was a sign that we're going to conquer. And then the people got so excited they actually went out and they won. And later he actually agreed to verify it by trial of ordeal. So this is how he had to do. He had to walk through a hallway of burning wood. And if he came out without a burn, then it would be believed what he said. Of course, he was burned to a crisp and died 3 days later. But this was the kind of thing they would do. Or put your hand in a pot of boiling water, and there's a tiny pebble at the bottom. And what you do is you reach in, grab the pebble, pull it out, a priest wraps up your arm, and then 3 days later, he'll take it off and see if you're burnt or not. And if you're not burnt, you told the truth. But tell me how you're not going to get burnt. See, like these kind of things that they do, they're not possible.
No.
So here's the point. If they want to get you, they're going to get you.
Oh, yeah.
And if they don't want to get you, they won't want to get you. So you live this life of trying to be perfect in every way, say everything exactly right. And what happens when somebody missteps a tiny bit? Gigantic apology, trying to get right with the collective group again?
Yeah, but you never will. And so think about modern day purity tests and how they've escalated over time. Like, it was like, oh, well, use these, use opposite pronouns. If it's a guy, use the she, her, or they, them, or any of the other ridiculous stuff. But use pronouns. And they're like, okay, doesn't sound too bad. Then it turned into like, now say this trans person is beautiful. I don't know about that. Like, it's a guy in a pink sweater. I don't really get it. Now say this black person beating an Asian person is white supremacy. That doesn't make any sense. Now see this guy in a one-piece woman swimsuit with his dick hanging out is normal. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, but now there's this trans person playing a concert with children in the audience, and he pulled off all of his clothes and played the piano with his dick. Say that's beautiful, right? Like, it gets more ridiculous over time.
But how different is that than what we were talking about before? Like, stick your hand in the boiling water, or let's sprinkle blood on the fruit. Now go go and pick one of those and eat it.
Right?
Right. I want you to eat it with the blood on it. Oh, you don't want to put that blood on your mouth?
No.
Oh, what's wrong with you? But it's very subjective to the collectivist society.
Right.
They choose when and where and how to apply it. So you'll see people get away with just about anything when they're one of the protected ones.
Right.
But once you're not, then you're not. And I'll tell you, once they cut you loose, like, you're done.
No.
You're 100% done. So, I mean, take a look at, like, some of these people, like, what is his name? The guy in Hollywood who...
I'm thinking of Ezra Miller right off the bat. Like, has the they, them pronouns and it's non-binary, which is impossible, but we'll get into that later. Has that protective shield. He has beaten people. He has broken into people's houses. He kidnapped children. Like, he's been accused and prosecuted for a number of crimes, but he is getting away with it because he's in Hollywood, and he, more importantly, has the shield of the LGBT community.
But step out of line a little bit, and that's gone. For example, Bruce, then Caitlyn Jenner, had the shield until there was a decision to think maybe this wasn't the right path for me. Maybe transgender women, biological males, shouldn't participate in women's sports.
Right.
And then what happened to the shield?
Yeah, it was gone. And he was ostracized the same day. Just like I was telling you earlier today, like Matt Walsh had a rally to end child mutilation. And one of the keynote speakers was this like 18-year-old girl that transitioned to be a man, or vice versa. I never get that straight. But, you know, she was speaking up there, and you could literally hear like the counter protesters, which I just think they're just thugs, chanting and calling this 18-year-old a fascist. Like, okay, so 5 minutes ago, when she was a trans man, super brave, but realized, okay, that's not what made me happy. That was just an instantaneous little magic wand deal. Transition back. Now you're a fascist.
Right, because you broke the rules of the collectivist society, and so it turns on you.
Right.
And this is what we're seeing, and they can apply it when they want. They'll find, if you go out of line, they'll find something. They'll say, oh, you wore blackface, 20 years ago.
No. Which is funny because now guys can wear woman face and there's nothing offensive about that.
And if you look at Ulta, the company, they have two men.
Yeah.
And this is what women are now complaining about. Of course, they're not being heard because they're not part of the collectivist society here. But they're saying, but wait, there's his woman face. Yeah. You're having women, well, males, masquerading as women, saying that they know what it's like to be a woman, and it apparently enlightening people on what it's like to be a woman. This is very offensive to many women who see this. But they apply it. Like Robert Downey Jr. wore blackface in Tropic Thunder, I think was the name of it.
Tropic Thunder.
But he's okay. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee you, if he steps out of line, that can come up and it can fry him. Paula Deen was fine for a long time until she wasn't, and then all of a sudden she used the N-word 30 years ago. Now it's a problem, but it wasn't before. Donald Trump was actually widely accepted by the Democrat Party for a long, long time, but he decides to go run as a Republican, and now all of a sudden all these things are bad. So, and it's not even necessarily about Republican or Democrat, but in his case, he's going after certain people. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. There are also Democrats that sometimes, like Tulsi Gabbard has been, targeted for some of her positions, and she eventually leaves the Democrat Party and all of that.
Right.
But that's the kind of thing is once you make that stand, then you're going to be a target.
And you don't even have to go to the quote unquote opposite side either. So Tulsi Gabbard's a great example of that. She didn't announce that she was Republican. She's just like, well, the Democrat Party is immoral and I'm leaving it. Can't stay with it anymore.
And that's one of the problems. One of the sad things, I think there was a time that you could say Republicans and Democrats, there's a healthy balance. Let's have ideas go back and forth. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, the left has kind of, and I say the left, I'm talking about the left that's really embodies this whole collectivist movement.
Right.
That has kind of taken over the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And people who are authentic Democrats, you see this all over the place. Tulsi Gabbard is one that recently left. Dick Morris, who's a commentator, was the chief political strategist for Bill Clinton, and now he's a Republican. And so what we've seen is we've seen the needle move drastically, and now what you have as the Democrat Party is now this far left crazy, collectivist society where true Democrats and true Republicans are all over here now.
Right.
And so it's a very different world. So we're not talking traditionally right versus left. We're talking about now everybody versus the collective.
Right.
And this is the big thing that's happening, and this is why it's so important to hold on to your identity. Now I want to give an analogy that I like. Take the game of chess. You've got all kinds of different pieces that do different things.
Right.
What's the piece we love? We love the queen, right?
Yep.
A lot of people.
Best piece.
Yeah, best piece, most powerful piece. You also have crazy, different stuff, like the knight's kind of quirky and bounces around in funky ways, and bishops can go diagonally and all this stuff. Well, a collectivist society would be threatened by that.
Yeah.
They would want everybody to be a pawn.
Right.
Because we don't want your individuality. We don't want your strength. We don't want the you because that's a threat. Mm-hmm. We want to control you and dominate you. We want you to be a pawn. Pawns can only move forward, and we tell you when to move, and we tell you when not to move, and that's it. And that's what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. The thing that I always tell people is that you are the solution. Whoever you are, that's what works. Your natural skills and abilities are what makes society great. What if the society of the United States of America, for example, was collectivist during this the revolutionary period? Well, there wouldn't have been a revolution, for one. What about during World War II? Well, we wouldn't have all of a sudden become very innovative when it comes to defending ourselves and to liberating Europe. And where would people like Albert Einstein have come from? What would be the incentive for someone like an Elon Musk to do all of the crazy inventions and a Bill Gates and all this? In a collectivist society, what we do is everybody say they're all different sizes. We'll just say that's talent, and we just come through with a scythe and just cut the top,
same size. Yeah.
And then all we are is the same amount of weak.
So, and for the life of me, and if anybody can tell me in the comment section, greatly appreciated. I have told you about this book I read. I still can't find it. About the story about how the government basically took over and made literally everybody equal by different means. Like if you were strong, you had to walk around with like weights on your arms and legs. Like if you were smart, they would put a cap on your head that like buzzed or made some incredibly discomforting sensation that would disturb or scramble your thoughts, so like you couldn't use your intelligence. Like they had different handicaps and different things for people to be equal. Mm-hmm. And the thing that was compelling about this is it was told through the lens of a family. Well, the son of the family broke out of his restraints, like incredibly like good-looking, strong individual, and had a woman with him, again, incredibly talented, like graceful, hugely out of the average, right? It ends with them dancing on TV and then like the government coming in and mowing them down, like on live television. And then they, turn on the devices to scramble the memories and stuff. And it ends with kind of the mom going like, yeah, I was really sad, but now I can't really remember why. But it just stuck with me over years. Like I read this thing in junior high and it was crazy. And like, I think that's what kind of sowed the seed to, even at a young age, to distrust the government. But I'm thinking collectivist societies want to do that. If you're strong, they want to weigh you down. If you're smart, they want to dumb you down. Like they want everybody to be average.
If you're strong, like if you're the queen in chess, you're a threat, right? So that's the problem. You cannot be that queen. Now I don't know that book. We'll have to find the book. But I do know I read Brave New World, and it's very interesting when they wanted to cripple certain people and they wanted just them to be, laborers and things. Like they had this thing where babies were calling around, and they had these books, and then when the books would open, there would be this terrifying image, and they would instill the fear of books in them, so they never wanted to read a book and never wanted to learn and be educated. But there's a lot of examples of this. But here's the point in all of this, is that right now, there is an effort, as there's always been in pretty much every generation, to strip everybody down to nothing but pawns, nothing but drones, and become collectivists so they can control us, take away our will, take away our freedom, take away our voice. And all that is, in any collectivist society for humans, is misery. If you're an ant, I'm sure that's a great, maybe a happy society, but not for human beings.
No.
We need to hold on to our identity, and to do that, we have to be able to stand in the face of criticism, and to be able to do that, we have to not need praise and validation. That's the weakness. So let's finish with this example that you really like and I like. The raccoon.
Yes.
I'll let you.
Oh yeah. So little farm tip and trick for the day, because I grew up on a farm. Tin trapping a raccoon. So this is illegal now. Used to be a thing, but you can trap raccoons very easily by setting up a box or a tree hollow, and you make a hole small enough to fit in like a closed fist in, big enough to put a closed fist in, small enough where they can't take an open fist out. And what will happen is you put a shiny piece of tin in there, the raccoon sees the tin, instantly wants the tin. So without hesitation, sticks his fist in there, grabs the tin, can't pull it out. Now one of three things happen when this occurs. So one, you're a competent trapper. You come, you check your traps, you see the raccoon. You can literally walk right up to the raccoon and just bash its brains in. It'll just stand there and let you do it. Or you don't check your traps, and it's rare, but it does happen. The raccoon will actually eat its own arm off. And then it will bleed out later, but it knows it can't let go of the tin, but it knows it can lose its arm. And then the third option is you don't check your traps, and the raccoon literally just starves to death, just doesn't move and dehydrates and just dies.
So that tin has overridden the raccoon's sense of survival, which is not a small thing for the brain. For any kind of brain, especially a mammalian brain, you're not going to give up your sense of survival very easily. And that shows how important that tin is. So this is so analogous to what's going on with those who want collectivist societies. They essentially give you this tin, which is, you're welcome here, you belong. We validate you, we affirm you, you're good. So then you grab onto this tin, but guess what? That's the end, because you can't pull it out again, because your whole character, your whole self-worth and everything you put into that thing, and you'll eat your own arm off, you'll starve, you'll get your brains bashed in before you will ever let it go. And that's why you don't take the bait that these people give you. If you don't take it and you find your own identity, you won't need it, and then you can stand up to the collectivist societies. Then you can have self-identity.
Right.
And we got to wrap up.
As much as the collectivist society wants to convince you they are not the majority. They are not that numerous. Like, they want to make a lot of noise and pretend that they are, but if you just tell them no, if you just resist, they will inevitably implode like every other collectivistic society that's come before. You just have to tell them no.
But I like that, and let's finish on this point, is that's the way you do it, because the collectivist society only succeeds when the people allow them to. They only get the power from the people. If everybody says no, they can't be collectivist anymore. And the way you say no, don't grab the tin.
Right.
And if you did grab it, let go of that validation. You don't need it. The solution's within you. And be a person, be a self. And love yourself and say no to the collectivists so we can actually be happy and not lose our freedoms.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in to Reality Check. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below.
And if you know anyone else that could use a reality check, share the link.
See you next time.